I was holding the pen, one signature away from locking in our dream home. The loan officer glanced at her screen, then frowned. "I'm sorry, but your mortgage was denied," I blinked. Confused, everything was in place. Credit score, income savings. That's when I turned to my wife, and her face told me everything. She broke down right there in the office, 6 hidden credit cards over $40,000 in debt. All in her name, all behind my back. She cried, begged, promised it was just impulse shopping that spiraled out of control. I believed her. I wanted to believe her. We made a plan. I picked up extra work. She said she'd get a weekend job. But then I found out she never worked a single shift. Not once. Because what she really did was spend that money on her cousin's husband, and her entire family helped keep it secret. I didn't scream. I didn't cause a scene. I made a different kind of plan. And when I finally exposed them all at their family dinner table, let's just say no one ever looked at me the same again. Don't miss what happened next, because when I laid out the receipts and hotel records, everything came crashing down. Subscribe to Revenge with Chris and let me tell you how it all unfolded. My name is Daniel Morales. I'm 36 years old, a high school history teacher in Albuquerque, New Mexico. I've always lived by a few simple rules: work hard, live below your means, and never carry credit card debt. I grew up in a working class family. My dad was a mechanic. My mom worked part-time at a bakery. We never had much, but we always had enough. I learned early that financial stress could break a family, and I swore I'd never let money become a problem in my marriage. When I met Carmen, she felt like the opposite of chaos. She was calm, kind, and full of dreams. She worked as a dental assistant, loved cooking, and shared my dream of someday owning a little 3-bedroom home with a garden in the back. We got married 6 years ago. It wasn't a grand wedding, just close friends, family, a backyard barbecue, and a lot of hope. We didn't have kids, not yet. Carmen said she wanted to feel secure first. So we waited, saved, and planned. I handled most of our finances, utilities, rent, long-term savings. Carmen handled the day-to-day groceries, gas, the occasional splurge. I trusted her completely. She always paid her half, and we never fought about money. By our 6th anniversary, we had saved enough for a decent down payment. That's when we started house hunting. Every weekend was a tour of open houses and conversations about school districts and kitchen countertops. It felt like we were building something real, something permanent. Then came the day we found it. A modest craftsman-style house on a quiet street, wide porch, mature trees, and a backyard big enough for kids someday. We both fell in love instantly. We made an offer. It was accepted. The lender approved us, pending a final credit check. That final check came the day we were supposed to sign. We were sitting in the bank office, smiles on our faces, when the woman behind the desk paused, her brow furrowed. She glanced up and asked us to wait just a moment. She stepped out. When she came back, she said the words, "I'll never forget. I'm sorry, your loan has been denied due to high revolving credit balances under your wife's name." I blinked what I turned to. Carmen, expecting confusion. Instead, I saw it. The look, that flicker of fear behind the eyes when someone knows they've been caught. She didn't deny it. She didn't even try. She just started crying, right there in the bank. "I didn't mean for it to get this bad," she said through tears. It started with little things. I thought I could pay it off, but it kept snowballing." She admitted it all: 6 credit cards, all maxed out. Department stores, online retailers, hotel rooms. I just sat there stunned. I didn't yell. I didn't storm out. Part of me wanted to grab my coat and leave her right there. But the bigger part of me, the part that still loved her, just felt defeated. We went home in silence. She kept crying. And I just sat on the edge of the bed staring at the floor. Later that night, she begged me to forgive her, said she'd do anything, get a second job, go to counseling, follow a budget. She said she still wanted that house, that life, that future with me. And I wanted to believe her. I made a plan. I crunched the numbers, built a spreadsheet, consolidated the debt. With a low-interest loan, I picked up extra tutoring hours on weekends. And Carmen, she said she applied for a retail job at the mall and would start working Saturdays and Sundays. We shook on it like a team. Like partners, I thought we were rebuilding. I had no idea the real collapse hadn't even started yet. The first few weeks felt hopeful. Hard, but hopeful. We clipped coupons, canceled subscriptions, and cooked every single meal at home. I stopped buying lunch at work. Carmen sold a few handbags online. We were doing the thing couples are supposed to do when life gets tough. Pulling together, I picked up 3 tutoring clients, 2 hours after school, 4 days a week. By the time I got home, it was past 8. Carmen would have dinner ready, and she'd tell me about customers and crazy coworkers at the retail store, where she said she worked weekends. At first, I believed her. Why wouldn't I? She seemed tired, worn down even. She showed me her work schedule, once snapped a picture of it on her phone. Saturdays and Sundays, 12 to 6 at a women's clothing chain in the mall. Still, something didn't sit right. It wasn't one big thing. It was little things that didn't line up. I never saw her bring home a paycheck. She said it was direct deposit, but our joint account never saw any new funds. She claimed her first paycheck was delayed, then that she had to switch banks. Then that the store's payroll system was messed up. 3 excuses, 3 weekends. No money. I wanted to believe it. But a part of me, the part that had just spent hours helping a student understand how to verify primary sources, was starting to ask real questions. So I did something I never imagined I'd do. One Saturday, I told Carmen I was going to a conference out of town. She smiled, kissed me goodbye, and said, "Don't work too hard," but I never left town. I parked in the mall parking lot across from the store she claimed to work at. I sat there for 3 hours. No Carmen. I walked in pretending to browse. The employee behind the counter greeted me. I asked if Carmen was working today. She blinked. "Carmen, I don't think we have anyone by that name." I asked if she maybe worked part-time. The woman shook her head. "Sorry, sir. No Carmen here. And we haven't hired anyone in over a month." I left that store with my heart in my throat. Outside, I sat on a bench and stared at my phone. She had just texted, "Long day at the store." "These customers are something else." I didn't respond. I didn't know how to. The next weekend, I followed her. She left the house at 11:30 dressed casual, but nice too. Nice for retail. I kept a few cars behind. She drove across town, stopped at a coffee shop, and parked. I watched her walk inside and sit across from someone already at a table. It was Mark, her cousin's husband. They didn't see me, but I saw everything. The way they leaned in, the way she touched his arm, the way they both smiled like no one in the world mattered but them. I watched for over an hour, then followed them again. They didn't go back to work. They didn't go to run errands. They went to a hotel when they stepped out of the car and walked into the lobby hand in hand, like teenagers sneaking around behind their parents' backs. My legs went numb. I didn't go inside. I didn't cause a scene. I went home. I sat at the kitchen table for hours, the silence in that house louder than any argument we'd ever had. And that night when she walked through the door, all smiles and fake exhaustion, I pretended to be asleep. I couldn't look at her. Not yet, because I needed to know how deep this went, how long it had been going on, and most importantly, who else knew? The next morning, I didn't sleep. I just lay there, eyes open, watching the ceiling shift with the light. Carmen stirred beside me, kissed my shoulder like nothing happened, and mumbled something about needing extra coffee for her shift. I said nothing. I waited until she left. Then I opened my laptop, pulled up our credit card statements, and started going through every single charge. I wasn't just looking for hotels anymore. I was looking for patterns, for timelines, for lies that had been hiding in plain sight. That's when I found it, the trail: multiple hotel bookings every other weekend, restaurants we never went to, a wristwatch that had never been on my wrist, a spa in Santa Fe, and a set of concert tickets for a band I didn't even like. But Mark did. Some of the charges went back over a year. A year. While I was working late, Carmen was building a second life with someone else, and she was paying for it, with the debt that crushed our future. I wanted to scream, but all I felt was cold. I sat there in silence, trying to piece together how the woman I married became this stranger. And then I thought about her family. They always seemed too polite, too careful. The way her mother used to say things like, "Men don't always have to know everything, Mia," when Carmen overspent. The way her cousin Mark's wife never looked me in the eyes at family dinners anymore. The way Carmen's older brother once joked, "If you ever lose her, you'll know it too late." And everyone laughed, except me. I picked up the phone and called Carmen's cousin, Elena, Mark's wife. She sounded surprised to hear from me. I said I just wanted to talk, nothing dramatic, nothing accusatory. Just questions. I asked her plainly, has Carmen been seeing Mark behind my back? There was a pause, then she whispered, you already know, don't you? I didn't answer. And I didn't have to. She broke down, said she found out months ago, said she confronted Mark but he denied it, said she told Carmen's mother, who told her to let it go for the sake of family. They all knew her parents, her siblings, even her cousin's wife. They all chose silence. They watched me break my back trying to fix our finances, while Carmen emptied her soul and our money into another man's hands. That night I sat in our living room, lights off, watching Carmen laugh at something on her phone. She looked up and smiled at me. I didn't smile back because something inside me had snapped, not in anger, not in rage, but in clarity. There was no coming back from this. No amount of therapy, no working through it, no redemption arc. This wasn't a mistake, it was a choice. 100 tiny deliberate choices made over and over again. And the people who said they loved her, her family, they didn't just turn a blind eye. They protected her, they enabled her. They let me suffer, while they passed mashed potatoes around a Sunday dinner table. Like nothing was wrong, I stared at her that night and realized the woman I married was gone. What was left was a lie I had been living in, and I was done living in it. I didn't say a word, I just started planning. Because this wasn't going to end with me yelling. It wasn't going to end with a fight. It was going to end my way. I didn't yell. I didn't throw things. I didn't ask her why. I already knew the answer, and I already knew what I needed to do. The very next morning, while Carmen was in the shower, I opened a new folder on my laptop. I named it Exit Strategy First. I gathered every piece of documentation. Credit card statements, bank records, loan rejections, purchase history, everything I could find that linked her name to that $40,000 in hidden debt. Then I combed through hotel bookings and pulled receipts, dates, times, addresses. I cross-referenced them with Mark's known whereabouts. Pulled up his Instagram and Facebook photos, geo-tagged in the same cities, the same weekends. I took screenshots, dated them, organized them into labeled subfolders. When I finished, I backed it all up to 2 encrypted USB drives. Then I found a divorce attorney, one who specialized in financial infidelity and marital fraud. We met in secret. I laid everything out. Her deception, the affair, the money. The attorney looked through the files and said one sentence that changed the game. We have grounds to file with cause, and you may be entitled to full restitution. He helped me file the paperwork that same week. Quietly, discreetly. Next, I contacted Elena, Mark's wife. I told her I had proof. Proof that Mark wasn't just cheating, he was using their money too. At first, she didn't believe me, but I sent her the folder, the photos, the hotel invoices with Mark's name and Carmen's credit card number side by side. The phone went silent for a minute. Then I heard her sobbing. We didn't talk about revenge. We didn't need to. We both knew where we'd be on Sunday night. You see, every week Carmen's family held a traditional Sunday dinner, rotating between her parents' home and her older brother's. This time it was at her mom's house. Carmen begged me to go, said it'd be good to get back to normal. I said yes. I spent Saturday printing every receipt, every photo, every piece of evidence, each sheet placed carefully in a manila folder, labeled and time-stamped. I didn't eat that day. I didn't sleep much either. Sunday came. We dressed like normal. She curled her hair and wore a sundress. I ironed a button down. We drove in silence. She scrolled through her phone. I watched the streetlights slide across the windshield. When we got to her parents' house, everyone was already there, laughing, drinking, passing around trays of tamales and enchiladas. Her father hugged me. Her brother handed me a beer. Her mother kissed my cheek. They smiled at me like they hadn't stood by while I drowned. We sat down at the table. Someone made a joke about politics. Carmen laughed and touched my knee. That's when I stood up. I pulled the envelope from under my jacket and placed it on the table. Everyone stopped talking. This, I said, is what your daughter's been doing with the money that destroyed our mortgage. Silence. I opened the folder and began passing out sheets, receipts, hotel bookings, screenshots of text messages between Carmen and Mark. Carmen's face went pale. Her mother gasped. Her brother looked at the ground. I thought you should all see it together, I said. Since you've all been so involved, that's when the front door opened again. and Elena walked in. She didn't say a word. She didn't need to. She walked straight to Mark, held up a printed hotel invoice and said, "You brought her to our anniversary suite." Then she pulled off her wedding ring, dropped it on the table, and walked out. The room exploded. Carmen cried. Her father yelled. Mark stood frozen, mouth open. And I buttoned my jacket, looked at Carmen one last time and said, "Check your email. The divorce papers are already filed. You can forward them to your lawyer." Then I walked out, calm, quiet, free. I walked out into the cool New Mexico evening, the voices still echoing behind me, yelling, crying, chairs scraping, someone knocking over a glass, but I didn't look back. My hands weren't shaking, my heart wasn't racing. In fact, I hadn't felt that calm in months. Not because it didn't hurt God, it did, but because I was finally done. I had given them all a chance to come clean, to do the right thing, and they spat on it. So I returned the favor with silence and facts, with timing, with truth. By the time I got home, my phone was already blowing up. 3 missed calls from Carmen, 2 from her mom, 1 from Mark, and a single unexpected voicemail from Elena. Thank you. For not letting me feel crazy, for not letting them get away with it. I slept better that night than I had in over a year. The next morning, Carmen was gone. She didn't come home. Instead, I got an email from her lawyer. She was contesting the divorce, claimed the debt was joint responsibility, said I was emotionally manipulative and unreasonable. I forwarded everything to my attorney. He laughed. Let them try. He said, "We've got receipts." Literally, it didn't take long. The court ruled in my favor. I walked away without owing a cent of her personal debt. The judge labeled her actions intentional concealment and marital fraud. I kept my retirement account. She got stuck with her own mess, but the fallout didn't stop there. Turns out Mark's employer didn't appreciate seeing screenshots of hotel bills floating around social media, especially not when those trips coincided with company-funded business travel. He was fired within a week. Elena filed for divorce right after word spread fast among the family. The Sunday dinner stopped. The group texts dried up. Carmen moved back in with her parents, and they, from what I heard, weren't as supportive once the truth was out. The golden daughter had lost her shine. And I went quiet. I poured myself into work, took on more tutoring gigs, more night school classes, and slowly I started rebuilding, not just my credit score, not just my finances, but me. For a long time, I carried shame like a second skin. How did I not see it? How could I let someone lie to me for that long? But the more distance I got, the more I realized. Some people don't make mistakes. They make decisions. And when those decisions come with lies, they're not your burden to carry. It took 18 months to fully recover financially. The house we lost, it still stings. But one day, while reviewing a student's essay about learning from failure, it hit me. Maybe this wasn't just about revenge. Maybe this was a reroute. So I created a new elective at school, Financial Survival 101, basic budgeting, credit literacy, red flags in financial relationships. At first, just 12 students signed up. By the next semester, there were 60, then 150 parents started attending after-school seminars. I was invited to speak at a state conference, then a national one. And just like that, the worst chapter of my life became the seed for something bigger than me. Something useful, something honest, something earned. One evening, nearly 2 years after that Sunday dinner, I walked past the old house, the one Carmen and I almost bought. There was a new family on the porch, kids laughing, a dad hanging Halloween lights. I didn't feel bitter. I didn't feel robbed. I just smiled. Because I realized I was no longer trying to fix someone who didn't want to be saved. I was no longer hiding in someone else's lie. I was free. It's funny how silence can be the loudest sound in your life. After the chaos died down, after the hearings, the depositions, the headlines in small circles, I found myself alone in a 1-bedroom rental with a couch from Craigslist and an air mattress I'd borrowed from a friend. No TV, no frame photos, no shared toothbrushes, just space and stillness. At first, it felt like failure. 6 years of marriage gone, 6 figures worth of opportunity burned, no house, no partner, no plan. But slowly, that silence became peace. I didn't have to wonder where she was, didn't have to second-guess a credit card bill or decode her excuses. I started sleeping through the night again. I started laughing with my students. I started remembering who I was before her, before the lies, before the weight. And that's the thing about betrayal. It doesn't break you. It carves out space, a deep, painful space. But if you're patient enough and honest enough, that space can be filled with something better, something true. I never set out to destroy anyone. I just wanted the truth to speak louder than the lies. And when it finally did, the world didn't end. It just got clearer. Today I own a modest little house near the school, 2 bedrooms, 1 small garden, plenty of sunlight, plenty of peace. I still teach, still run the personal finance program. Every semester I meet students who watch their parents fight over money or fall apart from secrets. And I tell them the one thing I wish someone had told me at 22. If someone hides debt from you, they'll hide a whole lot more. What did you think of this story? If you were in my shoes, how would you have handled it? Let me know where you're watching from in the comments. And if you think Carmen crossed the line, vote number 4. If you believe Daniel should have given her a second chance, vote. Number 6, don't forget to subscribe to Revenge with Chris so you never miss a powerful new karma story every single day.